But then it says, verse 11, now what I am commanding you today is not too difficult for you or beyond your reach. It is not up in heaven so that you have to ask who will ascend into heaven to get it and proclaim it to us so we may obey it. Nor is it beyond the sea so that you have to ask who will cross the sea to get it and proclaim it to us so we may obey it. No, the word is very near you. It is in your mouth and in your heart so you may obey it. See, I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction. At one level, Moses does seem to be coming back to the present. And he says, what I'm commanding you today is not too difficult for you. The word is very near you. It's in your mouth and in your heart. What does that mean? It does mean, on the one hand, that the Israelites right now have no excuse. The law of God is very clear. It's come to them. They don't have to go over the sea to talk to sages or to mystics to figure out what God's will is. It's come right to them. Love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. It's all laid out. They have no excuse. So in that sense, when he says, it is not too difficult for you, it is very near you, he's right. They have no excuse. And yet, as Tom Schreiner points out in his commentary on Romans, in chapter 10, where Paul quotes this passage, Tom Schreiner points out, you have to keep in mind that Moses has already said they will not keep this covenant. Even though he says this is something that you can do, you have no excuse if you don't do it. The fact is, they won't do it. He's already said so. And therefore, Paul is absolutely right in interpreting what Moses says here when he says, I'm giving you a word today that is not too difficult to you. It is very near you. It's in your mouth and in your heart. And of course, as you know, in Romans chapter 10, this is what Paul says. He says, Christ is the end of the law as a means of righteousness for everyone who believes. About the righteousness that comes through faith, Moses says, do not say in your heart, who will ascend into heaven? That is to bring Christ down. Or who will ascend into the abyss? That is to bring Christ up from the dead. But what does it say? The word is near you. It is in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of faith we're proclaiming. That if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Tom Schreiner says Paul's absolutely right in saying, in the end, the only word that will not crush you, that is not too difficult for you, and the only word that you don't have to go over the sea to achieve because Jesus has already done it. Don't try to earn your salvation. That's to bring Jesus up from the abyss. It's to bring Jesus, in other words, it's trying to put Jesus back in heaven. He came to heaven to save you. He went into the abyss to save you. If you try to save yourself, it's like telling Jesus what he did doesn't matter. Only the gospel is the word that is not too difficult for you. Only the gospel will not crush you. Any other word will. And therefore, what Moses is saying here is, someday the gospel will go forth.